trying to, we've had it discussed in cabinet, and we are going back probably in a week's time, and we believe within this coming financial year we should have a law in place. The most interesting thing about this is that we are likely to have an independent regulator for these other financial institutions apart from those that are regulated by the central bank, your client. And therefore we believe government must take bold steps to protect the consumers. Finally, we pledge to work with MUBS and continue working with MUBS and supporting you in this endeavor. I thank you very
much. Dear viewers of UBC TV, you're most welcome to Sacco Matters program once again. And tonight we are going to discuss very important subjects that is regarding microfinance. And we are here in Mutungo, particularly for those who know Kampala. We're discussing issues relating to microfinance, and there's been a workshop that was organized by Makerere University Business School, trying to focus on various issues that are affecting the microfinance industry. And out of that, there are issues that are emerging that are regarding financial inclusion, issues of interest rates in this industry of microfinance, issues of how loans are guaranteed, issues of how people actually accessing financial services and why are not even accessing financial services. So, and this is world of academia and also those ones who are implementing what is actually doing this. So I think tonight we are privileged that we have a team with which we are going to try to bring to us, enlighten us on what is happening in this industry. And we are going to have comparisons because we have got visitors across the country and those ones who are also within here to learn from experiences that within this country, Uganda, and also those that are outside this country, Uganda. So I am very much privileged that I'm hosting a team of about 3 people with whom you are seeing here. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and tell us their names, and then thereafter we shall go into a subject matter of what is actually happening in this industry and what issues are emerging in this workshop that has taken for 2 days in this place called Mutungo. So once again, you're most welcome to this program, and my name as usual is Salim Yusuf Jiduno, who will be taking you through this program. I would like you to can you introduce yourself to the viewers and tell your name and where you work. Perhaps maybe they would be very grateful to tell.
Viewers, my name is Makai Aumu. I work with Bank of Uganda in the supervision function. I think I'm seated here because of the project that we have under Bank of Uganda, which is called the Financial Inclusion Project, which I'm the project manager for this project, which is hosted by the supervision function of Bank of Uganda. Yes.
The only man in a dotted tie.
I'm Dr. Muditaya. I'm a professor in international business and strategy in NITE University in India. But at the same time, I'm a researcher in the field of financial inclusion. I'm always curious to know about what's happening in the field of financial inclusion in different parts of the world. My team has done extensive research in the area of financial inclusion, the issues and challenges in India. And I'm always, interested in comparing the experiences in, especially in the African continent. And I'm very glad that I have come to this beautiful country, Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. and interact with the policymakers, the practitioners, the academia, and the different stakeholders who have interest in this field.
So welcome. Thank you. I have the only man there.
Thank you. Hello viewers, my name is Patrick Ezaga. I am from Makerere University Business School, the institution that is hosting this workshop, which has brought together both local and international participants to try and unpack a little further issues to do with microfinance and how it can be more useful to the people in this country.
Thank you. When you say this is a conference, trying to package issues such that they are more useful to the people. And when I heard from the gentleman who is on my own left here, he was talking about financial inclusion. Maybe let me start with him. What do you mean by this animal called financial inclusion? If somebody is watching outside there, what do you mean by that?
Thank you very much. I will not go to the textbook definition of financial inclusion.
Yes.
But we're simply talking about that population which does not have access to whether formal or informal financial services, the unbanked population. So it's about taking financial services to these sectors and segments, especially at the lower pyramids, that don't have access neither to formal, not to formal and neither to informal financial sector. So taking services, financial services, or bringing them to the grid, financial grid, but in a convenient way, in a way that is really convenient to them, in terms of what they need and what's provided.
Maybe
So
what
you're
do you
looking
mean
at
when you're talking about taking financial services here? Are you talking in terms of like maybe constructing banks in the rural areas? Are you going back to maybe of having things? What do you exactly mean in taking that I'm taking the financial service near to the person?
I'll look at it in terms of linkages, trying to explore linkages. We know that the informal sector plays a bigger role than the formal sector. So in terms of the population spread out there in the countryside, how can they have access to financial services in a way that is convenient to them? So that can come through linkages, and that means you must talk about first education, giving knowledge, educating people about how they can manage their personal finances. But you must also work out to find infrastructure that can exploit linkages, say through the informal sector to the formal sector. We know that when you go to the rural areas, there are like these savings, village loan associations, there are circles, there are banks also going out doing branches, trying to, but maybe they don't penetrate as much as one would want to see, so that everybody or a majority of the people can have can have access to financial service to encourage savings and to allow them to exploit their potential. So it comes with education, it comes with empowerment, telling people their rights, and also the central bank doing a little bit more like what we did, issuing financial consumer guidelines, setting out some standards to increase transparency so that people know, understand. But of course, I've mentioned about infrastructure, and that will be a step. How can we move on, and instead of maybe the traditional branches of formal financial institutions, maybe one day we should be looking towards having like agents spread out there. Agents, maybe those people who are like merchants, maybe operating a supermarket or petrol station within the locality, or somebody running a garage of automobiles or spares or oils and lubricants, who can have some kind of be used as a link or exploiting those kind of linkages.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
When you come back, you're going to tell us those approaches and how you are intending to look at that. Because I know definitely right now we are talking about banks, we are talking about those formal institutions that are available, but I think that's also something that we are going to look at. Professor, what do you say? What do you give us from India? Because India is well known for a lot of good things, especially in terms of financial management, financial kind of inclusion. Also, I think I can put in that perspective.
Yeah.
What do you say? What leaf can we learn?
About financial inclusion, what are the purposes and what is it, our friend has very well explained. For me, financial inclusion is a very simple process, wherein when someone is in need of some money at an affordable cost, at the right time, and the right quality of finance is available to him when needed. That's what is very important. So whether it is a small shopkeeper, or whether it is a Buddha person, or whether it is a question of a village farmer, or anybody for that matter. So he should not be deprived of
Of the
money
opportunity
when he's
to
in need
access
of,
it, we
an
need
opportunity to access. So for me, financial inclusion is all about access and empowering people by ensuring that the financial services are made available. I'm not trying to say credit. Credit is only the one aspect of it. So it is not just credit, little beyond that. You want to transfer money to your son who is studying in another place. You want to, borrow some money. You want to, it could be anything, transfer services or anything for that matter. Or it could be micro insurance when you're talking of microfinance. Even that has to be covered. Now, if you really see the Indian experiences, today lot is being said about India. You say that that's the country where things are happening. And even Indians, as Indians, we feel these are very exciting times for our youngsters. Our GDP growth rate is very high, second highest in the whole world. But at the same time, you should know that real India is rural India. India is living in more than 35,000 villages. So in these villages, still we have the problem that nearly 58% of our working population is engaged in agriculture. And these farmers are not getting the kind of financial services that are required when they need. So we need to understand that nearly 1/3 of India is living with less than $1.25 a day. At the same time, nearly 2/3 of India is living with less than $2 a day. Now, the challenge for India is, how do we, implement an agenda, a strategy of inclusive growth, and how can you use financial inclusion to attain this objective? Because, India, as you all know, is a country of 1.2 billion. And you feel that you can get demographic dividend by making use of this population. But our problem is, if the last person is not included in the process of development, the demographic dividend that you are talking of can be the demographic nightmare.
That is where I want you to go. How do we make sure that this person, like in the case of India, where you have 1.2 billion people, how do you get that 1.29 or 1.1 person is able to also be part of the financial access?
Yeah.
Because that is where I want the area that we move on.
Well, now maybe at a later stage I'll discuss the implementation aspects, but I must tell you that the formal banking system has taken it very seriously. All our the nationalized banks, the private sector banks are now moving from the class banking to mass banking. Okay. So we are trying to, those who have been catering to just a few industrialists and wealthy people, they are now forced to. They are now, whether you call it, forcing or you are motivating, whatever the terms that you use, they are now required to move out to the villages, move out to the needy. I don't say that this problem of financial inclusion is prevalent only in villages. What about those millions who are living in the slums in big cities? So even they need financial services. Now, strategically, maybe at a later stage I'll explain, strategically we are trying to ensure that we reach out to all those who are unreached, those who are in need of financial services, who have not been touched so far.
In short, you are saying the financial inclusion does not only look at the rural area, but also looks at the urban area.
Obviously.
Where are those ones in the slums? Where are those ones who are actually excluded from actually getting the services?
People are people anywhere they are.
And because I don't know how many banks are in this country. I think there should be either 24 or 25, if I'm not very mistaken.
24 banks now.
24 banks now.
Yeah.
And given that we have like 100, in this country we have like 112 districts. Do we have all of them spread there?
Of course, the new districts, most of them hardly have any
Let me
financial institution.
Let me go to Ezaga.
Yes.
What do you make of all these comments that the two have actually made?
First and foremost, it's very exciting to hear these two perspectives, one from a policy-making organ, Bank of Uganda, and the Indian experience. And it is exciting because, just very briefly, as MUBS, the idea behind this kind of workshops was to enable this kind of interaction, per se. First and foremost, as an institution, it's an academic institution whose purpose is basically to cause discussion, to generate debate on such topical issues, but ultimately with the aim of finding solutions to some of these problems. Now, as a business school, it is now well known that one of the key aspects that have been discovered, which are very vital for spurring economic development, has to do with the SACCOs and the micro people down there. But what is apparent is that there seems to be this gap between those whom we recognize as very crucial for national development and the policymakers and other stakeholders. So ultimately, when we come to a discussion of this nature, a workshop of this nature, which was organized by the Microfinance Center, and you need to note that because this center is still recently established, and as an institution, MUBS realized the importance of microfinance, and that's why a whole center, a whole unit has been established to cause discussion on those matters with the ultimate aim of linking the different stakeholders and try to find out why is it that despite the realization of the importance of the micro people down there, we don't seem to see that translate into the kind of development we want to see. Okay, so when you hear McKay and Professor Mudithai say what they're saying, for us I think this is the kind of debate and this is where we need to be going. Because as a country, as a nation, you have had all over the place, there are SACCOs, some of them start, they cannot last long enough to celebrate their first birthdays. And we have to ask ourselves why. Because the SACCOs are supposed to be self-regulating. They are the ones who are supposed to be having access to the microfinance institutions, to the banks of this world, to access credit in order to do whatever it is that they want to do. But why is it that that's not happening? If you look at the success rate of many of these of the SACCOs, it's cause to worry.
So are we seeing microfinance as a whole failing, or is it contributing to anything?
I wouldn't say.
What are we seeing from here?
It is too early to start saying that it is failing. Remember that the concept of SACCOs, which in our case, in our local setting, is really the units around which you can look at micro issues. This concept is building. It has recently caught fire, and it is probably going through the initial teething problems. But at the same time, this is not something that can be left too much on the drawing board. While planning is taking place, execution must be following. Because at the end of the day, microfinance and access to microfinance services in financial inclusion is one thing that you cannot afford to delay. Layman speaking, everybody has some kind of idea with what to do with the money in their hands. If you have money, you know what your immediate needs are, and you know what to do with the money. The issue is how much of that actually translates into savings and investments. And that's why I think it is still too early to say the microfinance concept is failing.
Maybe putting it this way.
Yes.
Are the microfinance institutions helping the people, or they're improvising them the more?
Well,
because some people think that these institutions are just actually making more poverty-ridden than actually would help them.
If I can interfere.
Yes.
I feel the question, there is no debate on whether microfinance is essential or not.
Yes.
We should not. Microfinance is not an option, it is a compulsion. If you want inclusive growth, it is essential to ensure that you ensure access to finance to all those who are in need of. It is, as a government, as a concerned citizen, it becomes our responsibility. There is no question of saying whether microfinance, what will be the future of microfinance. Absolutely. Yes, microfinance has to have a great future. Now, the issue that is relevant is how well you manage this sector in the interest of all the stakeholders. Well, what actually, possibly what is happening in many countries where we get a fear, will this have a future and can we allow it to grow like this, is there is a feeling that the microfinance institutions, the suppliers, they are exploiting the situation.
Yes, that is what people think here in this country.
Yeah.
Exploiting them, they freeze them of their money, and here Bank of Uganda, they do nothing. That's
well,
what they say.
I think you
need also listen to their perspective.
But just to take that on, in a scenario like this, it is not surprising to have some people look at microfinance institutions with suspicion. But even before you go into putting all the blame on the microfinance institutions, because we are aware there are investors, but we also know there are harvesters who come into the economy. So I do hope that the microfinance institutions have come in as investors to try and put this situation right. But the issue here is, while we blame the microfinance institutions and accuse them of probably ripping people off, what about the people, the beneficiaries themselves? Because many times, one, it could be a misconception. Two, how many of them have the financial prudence and the financial discipline to put whatever it is, whatever finance, whatever information they've gotten access to. You have gotten an opportunity to go through training, to know about all these microfinance issues. How much of that information do you put to use? Take it to the next level. When you access finance, does it actually deliver what it is that you plan to get the money for in the first place? Because you will understand that the MFIs may not have the capacity to spread themselves so deep down into the villages to know whether what the purpose of the money it was initially got for is actually delivering. So it's a question of mindset. Personally, I don't think they are here to rip off people as that. But what's happening is that probably there may be some gaps, whether it is information provision to try and make people understand that they exist for a good cause.
Dear viewers, you are still watching Sacco Matters program on UBC TV, and we are discussing very crucial matters that are relating to microfinance. And just before we took off, we just looking at how the microfinance institutions developing or depriving the people in this country. And I want to go back to Bank of Uganda, Mr. Makei Ayumu, to actually tell us that issues are emerging in microfinance. Bank of Uganda, which is the central bank, is supposed to deal with policies and all like that, is doing nothing.
Well, that is looks a bit. Well, I should come in to say, well, my colleague here professor from India has talked about SACCOs. SACCOs are like cooperative organizations and the self-regulation, yes, basically. And the microfinance institutions, which we supervise, actually, we have given a license to 4 micro-deposit taking institutions. And we have all the confidence that they are operating safely and they are being regulated, they are being inspected. We don't have any problems. But you know, there are many microfinance institutions spread, and the Bank of Uganda cannot stretch and reach everybody. But having said that, we have proactively looked at the law, the Micro-Deposit Taking Institutions Act, to make amendments to bring on board, especially the large SACCOs, those which have this what we call systemic risk, where a failure by one institution can affect some other institutions. But the bigger number there, we cannot stretch and reach all the microfinance institutions. But the ones which we are supervising can assure the viewers and the public that they are operating safely. We do not have any problems with the ones who are regulating. And we have pushed amendments to the ministry. You know, you are aware that we submitted amendments to repeal the Micro-Deposit Taking Institution Act so that we can have more SACCOs, especially the bigger ones, coming on board, those which could have the problem I've told you, systemic risk. But before leaving that, you see, what Bank of Uganda will jealously protect is a pyramid scheme, for instance, people who are coming out there to deceive the public and taking deposits from them. That we move very drastically and we take control. But then there are people who are out there, they are lending their own money, like what money lenders. That falls under different regulation, Money Lenders Act. But if you're out there and we get to know that you're exploiting the public, we move in. But now if a situation where somebody maybe has his money and is credit only strictly, and I think it's on a need basis that some of this. But within what we control, I can assure you of good level of comfort, and we don't have problems of the public crying out that they're being exploited.
You and me, you live in this country?
Yes, I do.
You and me, all of us here live in this country. Or maybe my colleague who is also in, but he also lives in the global world, which he must be knowing. But do you think somebody who is living maybe 200 kilometers away from Kampala, or 300, let me say so. Let me say maybe around Arua, deep there, the village, or maybe down there, it's Kapchora. He'll believe you when you say that you see, you know that Bank of Uganda Central Bank is the overall overseer of the financial sector in this country. Now, when things happen like the front page and all others happen like that, now, what do you don't you think that's and people still complain, people still have issues. They say, okay, if you can be able to go in the banks and close them if they are not doing very well, why can't you come down here and help those ones, because they're also doing in finances? So how can we convince that old woman or that man down there that there's something government is doing through central bank to make sure that it's being protected?
Well, I think There are two angles to this. And my colleague Makay has already alluded to the fact that it is going to be practically difficult for Bank of Uganda to show presence in each and every village. That said, what this implies is that, yes, the regulatory role of the bank exists and they're doing a good job at my level. Now, for me to convince the person in the village, it's going to take a concerted effort. It cannot be a role of the Bank of Uganda only as a central bank.
Yes.
Bank of Uganda with other stakeholders need to find mechanisms of ensuring that this information is unpacked to reach the people down. It may even involve translating some of this literature into a language that they understand. A debate of this nature, like we're having today in this conference and this discussion, is intended precisely for such purposes, so that the different stakeholders come to identify such gaps. The question you're asking is pointing towards the existence of a gap between Bank of Uganda as a regulatory and the other banks and microfinance institutions. It appears that there seems to be that information gap. So the issue now is, how do we fill that gap to make sure that that person in the village, deep in my village in Arua, can also get to understand that Bank of Uganda exists and is doing its role, and there are also microfinance institutions whose roles are well laid out.
No, we must understand
yes,
that whether it is Uganda, whether it is India, Indonesia, Mexico, Brazil, any country for that matter. See, what's required is you need to have a very strong regulatory mechanism which has the teeth to bite when there is a problem. What is, see, as far as the field of microfinance is concerned, it is evolving. As you evolve, as you move forward, as new innovations take place, obviously there would be problems.
Yes.
You will get a lot of material for breaking news for TV. It will happen. It is bound to happen. It is happening in India. It is happening in many other countries. Maybe it could be happening in Uganda too. But what's very important is the regulator has a very important role to play to ensure that you have put the processes in place. And any microfinance institution or a player in the field who is trying to take the people for a ride is taught a lesson. So these lessons will guide the future behavior of the players in the market. So this is very important. So the role of the state would be to ensure that you have put clearly a regulatory mechanism which protects the interests of the different stakeholders in the field.
So maybe now, how you talked about the strategy of making sure that all partners fall into play, they make sure that they're educated, they get to understand. But do you think these institutions are ready to make sure, because some of them thrive because of ignorance of the people, do you think, are they ready to go and educate the people to understand that? Because when you're going to get a loan, I remember sometimes the terms are written behind in the small letters such that people don't understand them. Do you think, are they ready to make sure that they make these letters, these terms very bold, such that you and me who is going to, when you say close, that is again, you say, no, I don't have to go for it. Do you think, are they ready? Because they thrive from this ignorance.
Yeah. Well, I think I should come in at this time and Professor, that having a robust regulatory framework and being able to bite. We have done this. I told you about pyramid schemes. At one time, you mentioned, my colleague from MUBS mentioned about front page. There was another one called Kowe.
Yes.
We timely moved in and saved the depositors. We have done that. We have a robust system, regulatory framework. We have the institutions that we supervise are sound. Like if I talk about banks, recently we increased the capital requirements, and the deadline was 1st March. And all the banks have come in and complied with the new capital requirements. Because capital is very important, because it's the capital which absorbs losses. If a financial institution is making loss through a bad loan or through a fraud operation, any operation, it's capital that takes it. So we did that. But now, coming to the subject of financial education, that's why we have moved a step now to have this project run under Bank of Uganda. A greater part of it is on financial education, or financial literacy. And we have clearly identified channels through which we want to achieve financial literacy in this country, which includes rural areas, the youth, associations, clubs, workplaces, using the media, the school curriculum. So this will have a
Are you now
greater.
doing it from here? Seems you're also doing it when you use this one.
Yeah, this is part of it actually, and we are happy to pilot something with the institutions of higher learning, universities and vocational institutions. And on Saturday there's another event with the National Curriculum Development Center. They'll be having some drama festivals, looking at primary children and secondary children. There will be 10 schools participating, trying to sensitize them at that level. So when we look at the financial inclusion project, the agenda for financial literacy is the bigger one. But I also want to mention that you should give education, financial education should come with the infrastructure and enabling environment. And that pushes us to the issue of amending regulations and the laws. Because in the current
The
form,
law is favorable.
the laws need, some amendments needed to be done, which we have done and actually submitted to the Minister of Finance.
Yes.
To allow like agent banking, which we know would benefit. It would be a direct link of trying to penetrate those rural areas which tend not to be very attractive to the formal financial institutions. One, because of the cost outlays of establishing branches. You need infrastructure, you need internet, you need all this. But an agent basically needs a mobile phone and a point of sale. And in the villages now, over and above the electricity that we know, there are solar systems, they're rechargeable systems. So this could work. But the laws need to be amended, and we've submitted these amendments to the ministry. It covers issues like agent banking, I've mentioned that, mobile money, Islamic banking, bank assurance. And we know that banks or telecoms should not be having the monopoly in financial matters. That's why they have to partner with the financial institutions, supervised financial institutions, to offer mobile money financial services. And we have issued a letter of no objection to those who are doing that now, the partnerships, and also made enhancements, putting some tighter conditions so that we ensure safety in the system.
Yeah.
And it is better that the phone is playing a very going technology, and the mobile phone is going to play a very leading role. But it's better that these services are brought to the banking system, who are the experts in managing money issues.
What do you mean when you say they are bringing those services to the banking system? Are you saying that now the banks are going to deal with it exclusively? What are you meaning?
There will be some partnerships still, because the platform provided the technology aspects, the telecoms have an upper hand on that. But when we move to a level of doing like agent banking, so basically this will be an agent doing work on behalf of the bank.
Okay.
Basically a channel.
I
Let me
just
go to Professor,
wanted,
as he comes back to answer the question of my goodwill, do the banks have a goodwill to making sure that people understand?
but before that, I
Yes,
think
yes.